So let's talk about this. This is the Team Star Challenge online competition. This is a singles tournament in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet that's going to be taking place the weekend of November 10th. So I think it goes like next week. This thing is coming our way. And what's different about this tournament, instead of all the online competitions we've had, this is an online competition that's singles. Bring Battle Stadium singles, bring 6, pick 3 for every single battle. But you have to follow a very specific set of rules. Very specific set of rules, which we can check out right here. This is from Sarah B. Every single team has to have a Revavroom in it and be using said Revavroom. I think that's the craziest part about this. You have to have a Revavroom in your team because that's like the mon that the Team Star people use, and you have to use the Revavroom in every battle. Every single participant is going to be getting a Starf Berry, which is a pretty cool item, and it's mostly just a for fun competition. But then from there, there's a second rule set. You can only use Pokemon that were featured in Team Star boss battles. So remember, each one of these guys, remember the first one, the Fire Girl had like Torkoal and stuff like that. These are all Pokemon that are used by the star bosses. So I think it's actually a really, really cool format, and I wanted to run down and rank all of the Pokemon in the format through the bubble of this format. Like one might just say, oh, Annihilate's best Pokemon, Kingambit's second best Pokemon, it's over. But there are Pokemon that are played completely differently in singles than they are in VGC, and there's some Pokemon that are very, very good in this specific format just because there aren't really that many Fairy-mons for coverage. There's not really that many, like, other Pokemon that do that stuff. You say Kingambit was actually used? I mean, someone used Kingambit. It's on the list. It's right there. So you say Hat's looking good. It's not, though, because Trick Room is not as viable in singles, which means Hat has just a little bit of a harder time functioning. It's good. You say one Intimidate pool? You're actually mistaken, because there are multiple Intimidate users, and actually, something like Crocodile is going to be pretty good, in my opinion. Yeah, it's singles. It's not doubles. It's singles. It's a singles tournament. So it completely changes how the formats and everything goes. So let's start talking about this, and hopefully have a pretty good time. Remember, like I said, every single team, you have to use a Revavroom. So that's also going to be changing kind of how... That's going to be changing kind of how Revavroom really works, because Revavroom comes with very specific weaknesses. So for example, like Revavroom being in there, being like a steel poison type, it's going to make something like a Cacturne really, really hard to use. Something like a Dragalge really, really hard to use, just because that they're always going to have that bad matchup. The poison types and the grass mons in this format are really going to struggle going against the Revavroom, so that's something just to note. Is this an official format? This is an official format. This is like official by TPCI. This comes out next week. Magic Bounce is good in singles, only Rocks is good in singles, which isn't actually, that popular in Battle Stadium. But let's just start by ranking some of these matches, ranking some of these mons, and explain a little bit about their sets and how they're going to be working in this format. One thing to note is that since we have such a limited dex here, there are going to be Pokemon that are going to be a lot better than others. Notably being Annihilate, getting access to Final Gambit. It can KO every single mon in the meta other than Wigglytuff and maybe something like Azumarill. So if you check a look at like Annihilate here, right, you can just go Choice Scarf. Choice Scarf Final Gambit KOs the whole meta. This thing has a 110 base HP. What's Azumarill? Azumarill is only 100. Yeah, so it's like the whole thing just gets bodied. It's kind of sad we can't use the different Torques. I mean, that happens. What about Hatterene? This is a singles tournament, guys. So like Hatterene's okay, but like it's really hard to use Hatterene in singles if you don't really know what you're doing. And 6v6 singles, where Hatterene sometimes does see play, is a very different metagame than 3v3 singles. 3v3 singles, as someone who got second at the World Championship singles tournament that they held, I'm gonna die on that hill. I did. They hosted a singles tournament at Worlds this year, full of people who like played in the actual Worlds tournament for VGC, and I got second in that tournament. So that I got a little bit of a grasp how this format works. And Battle Stadium is focused more on trades than like rocks and value. Can you break down what you think are the most meta for this tournament? That's what we're going to talk about. But we got to talk about like what the meta is going to be, right? So since Annihilate can Final Gambit every mon in this format, we're going to see a heavy like emphasis on like Ghost Terras and pivoting and making Annihilate lock into that Final Gambit and punishing it and kind of setting up in its face. That's what the whole meta is going to be built around. But that being said, every team is going to have an Annihilate just because it is the best Pokemon in the format, in my opinion. The only checks to Annihilate would be things like Arcanine and other stuff like that, and those come with Defiant. Like a lot of the Wisp users in this format, come packed with like stuff that you might even just see like Flash Fire Arcanines because they don't want to proc the Annihilate, but they still want to burn them. So I think Annihilate's definitely like an S tier mon. If we take a look back over here, popular sets are going to be like Choice Scarf, Final Gambit, Defiance are going to be everywhere since there are popular Intimidate users. You're able to outspeed anything with that. You can also just play like a bulk, like standard like wall Annihilate. But the issue with that is if you're trying to play a value Annihilate with like Bulk Up, Drain Punch, Rage Fist, your opponent also has an Annihilate. And so like Annihilate mirrors are dicey. You say Gambit is a decent counter to Ape. I don't think that it is. I think they're both similar, but they're not a counter because, you know, you can just Drain Punch the Gambit. And you can say, well, the Gambit can Terra. Well, then that's the Terra down. So if you do something earlier on in the match that can condition the Terra, the Gambit just gets folded. I think Merciless Toxapex Baneful Bunker? No, that's not value. Toxapex gets played a few different ways in singles, which we'll talk about. You gotta just relax. Just relax, and I'll run it all down for you guys. But yeah, Annihil's gonna be very good. Bulk Up sets are good. You know, Final Gambit sets are gonna be good. Just being able to lead it are gonna be very, very viable. Definitely like an S tier pick. We're gonna see a lot of this guy. This is gonna be the most common lead in the game. I will tell you right now, Annihilate will be the most common lead in the game. So when you're trying to make your teams, assume that they can lead Ape and that they probably will lead Ape until you get into about the 1600s. Up next is going to be Arcanine. Very good Intimidate user. 95 base speed on Arcanine is very good. So 95 base speed on Arcanine is going to be good. It's going to be able to intimidate most things. It's good into things like Armarouge. It can get things like Snarl. It can be built Banded. It can be built fast. It can be built with like Assault Vest too. I think this Pokemon has a lot of cool things going for it. If you take a look at like the meta, like other than the Annihilate, which by the way, you can give it the Defiant proc and then like outspeed it. You know, it's a good set. It's good into Armarouge. Against Azumarill, it's not that great, but you can go Water Terra or even something like a more aggressive Terra, like an Electric Terra Wild Charge. You don't need to worry about Cacturn. Colossal's the foil to Arcanine, but how common is Colossal going to be? Other than like a Rocks setter. Dash Bun's, again, a foil to Arcanine, but again, you're probably not going to see anyone using Dash Bun in singles because there's no real way to consistently get its ability to proc other than pivoting on an Arcanine who doesn't have to ever proc it. Dragalge's not going to see that much play. You bop the Hatterene, you bop here. Houndoom's a good foil to Arcanine, but we come packed with like double tapping with extreme speed. In Battle Stam singles, can you double up on items? Nope, it's the same rules as VGC, but it's singles. And Arcanine's actually pretty good into Gambit. Yes, you give it the Defiant proc, but when you just lock in like Flare Blitz Close Combat, they have to Terra, which means their Terra's down, so it unlocks the rest of your team's ability to be a bit more fluid. Arcanine's great into Comfey. Arcanine outspeeds things like Crocodile, so it's another good one. Outspeeds Lucario. You can start to see how Arcanine is one of the better mons in the format. And I think most teams will actually pack an Arcanine. I'm probably going to be bringing an Arcanine for what I want to do with my team as well, because I think having the Arcanine or having the Crocodile will be very, very good at conditioning our opponent to lead with those Defiant mons. And if we know that they're going to be leading with Defiant mons, like, or even Inner Focus mons, but things like Lucarios and then Defiant stuff like King Gambit and Apes, we can have designated like flow-charted leads that just take those Pokemon out of the game. So I think Arcanine, I don't know if it's an S tier pick, but it's definitely an A tier pick. It's not going to be winning you every single game, but it's going to be a Gloomon that we can actually use to make our teams work correctly. So we have to only use the Pokemon on our list. Yeah, you can only use the Pokemon on this list for the tournament. They're the only ones allowed. You can't use anything else. You can't even use like Bisharp. You have to use Pawniard because a Pawniard was used and a King Gambit was used, but that was it. So let's take a look at Armarouge. Armarouge has a few different types of sets in singles. I actually think that Armarouge is best built as like a choice item mon, like a choice specs or a choice scarf. But Armarouge is actually kind of cool. And the set that is going to see the most play, if I can spell this thing, the set that's going to see the most play is honestly really weird. Yeah, and Mabosif's another Intimidator, right? Items can change. You can use both these abilities are good, but the set that is going to see the most play is actually going to be Psychic Terrain into like expanding, probably like an Aura Sphere, and probably like an Armor Cannon. And the reason you want Psy Terrain is because this lets you, if you're holding like a Sash or maybe a good defensive Terra, you can put like outvalue Gambit and you enable the Expanding Force. And Armarouge is a really, really good example of every single team having to have, what is this guy? Freaking Revavroom on it. So you will always have advantage if you're bringing these like fire mons that are going to be forcing Terra. It's a manual Psy spam. Yeah, but like look at it. Like, you can KO Azumarill with Expanding Force, Armor Cannon, Expanding Force, Expanding Force, Expanding Force, Armor Cannon, Expanding, or Armor Cannon, Aura Sphere slash Armor Cannon, Armor Cannon, you know, Aura Sphere. You see, Armor has like amazing coverage against everything, and it has a better speed tier than most people give it credit for. You can actually still put like weak armor on it, soak some damage from like something small, get up that side terrain, because what people are going to be doing is weakening the armors and putting it within range for sucker punches and E-speeds, and if you manually cast that side terrain, they can't do that. So it's going to be really, really cool. Armor's is another A tier pick for me. I just think it's going to be very, very good in this format. I don't know if it's going to be S tier. It's a little bit combo based, but it's a good solid lead. And it also super effective in things like Ape and stuff like that too. So very, very cool mon. I think you're going to see a lot of it. We're going to take a look at Azumarill next. Azumarill's a bit of a weird one. Azumarill could be really, really good, but it could also be pretty underwhelming because we might see a little bit of sun. I don't think you want to waste your Sash on Armourouge in this format. I think your Sash and your choice items are going to be very, very, very important. And you can't just throw those on an Armourouge who doesn't necessarily need the Sash. Like, it's already actually kind of bulky for what this format is. You really have to separate from how you would normally play Pokemon and look only at what's in the format. And if you look at only what's in the format, Armourouge has much higher base defenses than most of the format. Most of the format is going to be things like, you know, Cacturns, Houndooms, Lucarios. So Armourouge isn't going to get one shot. There's no Fluttermanes, there's no Urshifus, like there's nothing that you need to like live a Sash hit from. There's nothing, like Armourouge is one of the closest things we have to an Uber. Most of the mons are pretty frail. So, and they're also weak on the same regard. So I don't think you need Sash. Sash would be much better off on something like that Houndoom or like that Lucario that is more of a glass cannon. Armourouge can kind of just take the hit, put up the side terrain, and then make sure it's not within range of getting Revenge KO'd and then pin things. But Azumarill's a pretty good mon. I think it's going to see a lot of value with things like Huge Power. I don't think Sap Sipper is going to be that good here. But the problem with Azumarill is it's slower than Revavroom, and Revavroom just comes in and just gets it with a gunk shot, right? So I don't know how good Azumarill is going to be. It's good into like the 3 or 4 things that we mentioned. So that's why I still think it could be good. I'm going to still put it in the A tier. I think Choice Band Azumarill with like Revenge KO potential is going to be very viable because it kind of lets you get put behind and then still come back in and say, actually, get rid of that. Make sure the next guy can't set up on me. Double tap it with like potential with Aqua Jet so you can't set up. And then from there, like close with your own Revavroom. You say Specs Earth Power from Torkoal would hurt if no Terra, but the thing is like you can't have Specs Earth Power Torkoal because you don't have a teammate because there's no Trick Room in this format. And I'm not going to say there's no Trick Room in this format, but like it's going to be so obvious which teams are Trick Room. There's only a few setters in the format, right? Let's look at them. There's Hatterene, there's Klefki, and that's it. And Armourouge, right? So if they have to set with those, some of those can be taunted, Hatterene can't, but some things can be doubled up into. And even if things do, like Trick Room just doesn't really work in Battle Stadium as well as you might think. You can mitigate damage. And the problem with these formats for Trick Room users, right? Klefki's Prankster, you can't go Prankster Trick Room. It doesn't work. It only increases its priority by 1, but it's already a -7 move, so it goes to -6, but it's still last, right? So when you're playing Trick Room, the way you actually beat Trick Room in singles is you just don't, you let them Trick Room and then you make them spend 2 or 3 of their turns trying to get the other Trick Room on the board because they can't take the risk and like pivot into Torkoal unless they're crazy. You just kind of leave the hat on the board, mitigate damage. Maybe when the Torkoal finally comes in, you flip a Terra, flip it backwards, and then they can't ever reset the Trick Room and you win the game. I'm not saying it won't see play. I'm saying you have to go really, really hard into it and it doesn't get the same benefits. The closest thing you'll see is teams that just like splash a hat and the hat itself might have Trick Room. So hat could get like a 1v1 closeout, right? So, you know, I'm just letting you know, it's not that great in these formats. Cacturn, let's see Cacturn. I've used Cacturn recently. It's not that great. It's 55 base speed, which means it's slower than a lot of things. I think this is like the biggest discount King Gambit in the format. It has Water Absorb, and Water Terra is going to be one of the better Terras in this format because it's neutral into almost everything. There's not that many grass types. There's no electric moves. But I do not think they're going to be firing off Terra Blasts. So Cacturne's not that great. It actually kind of just loses to a lot of stuff, loses to Ape. And from there, it also doesn't really come packed with that much damage. Like, yes, it gets like Sucker Punch and other stuff like that, but there's not really a reason to use a Cacturne over something like a King Gambit. So I would probably put Cacturne. I'm going to put it in the C tier because it's not unusable, but it's really not great. And the best set for this guy might be a Sash set, which is pretty unfortunate because that's wasting your Sash on something so slow. The best that it does get is like Endeavor, like Sucker Punch. So like that's why it's not in the not good tier. You can still do this. This does work. Terra Ground, Terra Blast, Water Absorb. I mean, that's a lot of resources on a Pokemon that sucks, right? That's a lot of resources. I'm not saying you can't, but you used like literally every one of your like mechanics and resources on like one Mon that still won't KO anything. You're trying to win without using your resources, so you can use them to punish your opponent for using them early or flip the game back in your favor if they get an advantage. You don't want to waste them. You want to save them until you need them, especially in a Battle Stadium singles format, in my opinion. So we're going to go into the next one. Colossal. I think Colossal might actually see some play in this format. If we take a look at Colossal, there's a few different things that it gets. So Colossal is actually pretty chunky. It's one of the bulkier mons in this format. 110 base HP means it still get KO'd by Final Game Up from Ape, right? But like 120 defense, 90 base Spadef. It gets things like Iron Defense. If you want to be able to use that, it gets 3 different abilities that are all good in this format, right? They're all good. Steam Engine is usable, right? I'm not going to say you should use Steam Engine, but Flame Body is really good because there's going to be a lot of physical attackers like Ape and Gambit, and Flash Fire is really good because there's a lot of things like Arcanine and Armarouge. Both of these are going to see play. This is going to be a great Pokemon to put on your team if you are really susceptible to Wisp. So this might be a really good teammate for like an Annihilate. Also, Fire type and be able to come in and cut that damage from any Fairy Terra, Terra Blast that might be running around. It might actually work. Any like sort of flying attacks like that. What about Terra Water Steam Engine? I mean, you guys keep asking me all these like if your plan is to like Terra offensively and use a Terra Blast in this format, you're looking at it wrong. Because it's a format based around like trades and punishing. And you're using your defensive tools to cheese a KO, but then like they come out and they pin you and they still have theirs. So you've equalized the score at 2-2, but now you just don't have a way to like repin them anymore. Flame Body goes pretty hard. It does. I think Flame Body is actually the Willy I would probably go with here for Colossal. I think Colossal's best play in this format is going to be most like a Rocks user. I think it's a good Rocks user if you want to use Rocks that has like decent attack and special attack. And then like from there, you could go Iron Defense, give it a little more value. Something like Leftovers is going to be like a usable set with like Flame Body and kind of just have it sit on the board a little bit. It's probably going to have a pretty good matchup versus most teams' Revavrooms in the back. So if you want to go like heavy defense with maybe a good defensive Terra if you wanted to, with even like an Iron Defense, you can always come in on their Revavroom, soak the damage, set up the Iron Defense, and then from there, pin the Revavroom and get ready to like, mess the rest of their team up. It does get Iron Defense Body Press on that good stat line. Like you can't really say this Pokemon's terrible. I do think that I'd rather use an Arcanine in most situations. I'm going to put it in the B. But it will see play. Power of Meteor Beam. Hey, there you go. Why is Room broken? It's not broken. It's not. You have to use Revavroom. That's the requirement for this tournament. Revavroom's ass. You have to use it by per se the rules of the tournament. You have to use Revavroom in every single battle. So up next we got Dachshund. Like I said, I don't think Dachshund's going to be very good here. It does get some things that most Pokemon don't get. Aroma Veil is actually like probably the ability I would go with here. Well, Big Body is also fine, but I don't think anyone's even going to be throwing out those fire attacks against the guy that has the Dachshund on the team. So I would probably go with this to be able to block taunts and encores because those will see play as well. And then from there, I think this thing's best play is like a Yawn user. You might be able to go for like some sort of setup moves into like Baton Pass. There might be something there. It gets access to Roar, Wish, Charm, stuff like that. I don't really think it's going to be that viable. But it's okay. I think it's about Cacturne level to where it's way too combo based and way too resource intensive to make it actually work. And that's pretty much it. You say Lavapoon with Body Press. Are you talking about the Colossal? Yeah, Colossal gets really cool stuff. Lavapoon's great in singles. Let's take a look at Dragalge. I don't think Dragalge is going to be that great, just because it gets kind of bodied by King Gambit. I think that there's going to be a lot of King Gambits running around, and I do not think that this guy actually has the skills to pay the bills. Poison Point, Poison Touch, and Adaptability are its abilities. Adaptability is probably what you're going to see. This guy, I would say that like normally like a Vest would go here, right? But you don't really want to vest it because like the whole format's physical, right? There's one special attacker, one like a half maybe. Lucario can go mixed. Two, Hatterene's slow as shit, and where's Houndoom? I mean, there's 3 Armarouge. You know, there's not. It's all physical mons. This whole meta is physical. A Houndoom special, right? So I think in those situations, like Dragology, Vest, a lot of the mons that look really like they would be good with like a Vest, like the Azumarill, the Dragology, King Gambit. Those aren't. If you see people using those, I would say they're probably not optimal. So yeah, and especially like Dragology's own other Pokemon that both of its stabs get blocked or nullified by every Revavroom. So if you ever are trying to use Dragology, you're actually giving your opponent a free pivot out of a potential pin into a Revavroom, and now you're the one that's pinned. So I would just put it in the C tier. It does do a lot of damage. If you can get up a Trick Room and have it working, maybe it could work. But I don't see this Pokemon getting a lot of value in this format. It's too slow, and it's just a little bit of too value based. Hatterene is a okay mon though. Hatterene's going to be okay. It gets Healer, Anticipation, and Magic Bounce. And honestly, I know that everyone's going to go with Magic Bounce. But I think Anticipation is good in Battle Stadium singles because you can kind of see like what cheese options they have. You can learn a lot about opponents' sets. This is kind of like a Frisk. Like, for example, if your opponent has, like, if they're running like an Iron Head Gambit, they're probably not running like a Black Glasses setup Gambit, right? If they're running Sludge, like basically like knowing exactly what move they have that is super effective or not even on them on, I think it's pretty usable to go Anticipation. But I think most people are just gonna go Magic Bounce. That's fine. It's good with Trick Room. If you can get Trick Room up, it's a good mon. It gets good coverage. You can even go. What's that move? Is it like Memento or whatever? You Misty Explosion. Yeah, Misty Explosion's fine. Basically, you just need to be able to Trick Room and then die to then bring out your Torkoal, right? That's how it goes. Not Metronome, Misty Explosion. Right, so you can just go Trick Room, die, it's Torkoal time. And you have like 4 turns of Torkoal to just go. And sometimes that's viable. There are going to be teams that do that. They're like Sash Hat, Trick Room, Magic Bounce. You can't taunt me. They might have a Ghost Terra to make sure that you can't get doubled up on by like, I don't even know. You don't have to play around Fake Out here. But you basically just pop the TR and then you just Misty Explosion and you get 4 turns worth of Torkoal, right? So this Pokemon's going to be okay. You're going to see it in the B tier. It might see a little bit more play. The reason why Hatterene's not super high in this S and A tier is because Revavroom can come in and bully it technically. Like Poison's good against the Fairy, Steel's good against the Fairy. Like it's pretty good. So yeah, I think it's going to be viable, but not like, it's going to be pretty easy to spot those teams as well. So what you can do is like, it's hard to explain, but you just need to have a mon that can Terra in front of the Torkoal and just check the Torkoal, and then now their hat's gone, their Torkoal's gone, and you have a 1v1 of like something versus you know, the rest of their team. Which hopefully it's a good mon, right? So let's take a look at Honchkrow. I don't think Honchkrow is going to be that great. So Honchkrow, it gets Insomnia. There's not that many sleep users. Super Luck and Moxie. Moxie's probably the ability you're going to see most. This thing's probably going to be built Choice Scarf. I think this thing with Choice Scarf is going to be probably its best set. You know, a Choice Scarf, and then you're able just to like come in with like a big Brave Bird. So like this guy would probably have like Brave Bird. Let's sort it by physical. So Brave Bird's good. You also have access to like Night Slash and Sucker Punch. You can probably go with an aggressive Terra Blast here, maybe like a Terra Blast Fighting. Can you be a Tailwind Setter? Tailwind's not a thing in singles. You're not going to see people using that. It's a bit of a waste of a resource. Yeah, I think if you went something like maybe like a Night Slash, you might even want to see like a Ground Terra Blast just to be able to check Revavroom because that's a pretty obvious hole. But then you see how that's like a lot of, you see how that's like a big, how would I word it? A waste of your resources to do that. I think it'll be like a C tier mon. I don't think it'll be that high. And if you do see it and it can break an ape, like worst case scenario for like the best case scenario for this Pokemon is they see the ape and you're like, I'm going to go Brave Bird. And they go into the ape and the ape just flips a Terra, KOs it back. And then like now your Honchkrow's gone. And then I guess you can repin the ape and I'm Terra down. but I get to see like how you're pinning and breaking my ape, which means I can still use my Scarf user, and the fact that now you don't have one because it was on your Honchkrow means I kind of win the game, and I get the value at the end. So those are my thoughts on that. Houndoom. I think Houndoom's actually better than some people are using it for. So Houndoom's going to be probably built with Flash Fire here. And I think like this is where I would put Sash. So like Sash, and then you have things like, you have Heat Wave, you have Dark Pulse. You can have Taunt if you want. I don't think you need Taunt. I would probably end up going like Destiny Bond. And I would put Sucker Punch here, because like still having Sucker Punch on a base 90 attack Mon is actually really nice. So I think this is a Pokemon that I'm probably going to use myself, because you can condition a lot of play, have some good pivot power. Destiny Bond is good in a 1v1 situation, and like Sucker Punch is good for being able to finish things off. Like, for example, like against a Revavroom, you can go Soak damage, Heat Wave, almost KO, finish off with Sucker, and then Destiny Bond the Pokemon right after it. So it's like the closest thing we have to like a Gengar in this format. So I actually really like this Pokemon. I'm going to put it in the B tier. I think it will see play, and it's a lot faster than a lot of the other Mons in the format. I don't think it's going to have to be A tier, but I'm probably going to use a Houndoom in this format. Probably. King Gambit. I think King Gambit's going to be really, really good. Like, super good. King Gambit's great. We're going to see a lot of Swords Dance sets. So a lot of Swords Dance sets. You have Kowtow Cleave. You got Sucker Punch. You might see some low kicks and stuff like that. The biggest problem with King Gambit is the best Pokemon and the most popular Pokemon in the format is going to be that Annihilate. And so you're going to have to boil your Terra. But that being said, King Gambit can be really good with Defiant. I think there's so many good Intimidate users that are basically required to play. You can always go Gambit. Is Destiny Bond like Final Gambit where you lose if you use on your last Mon? Yeah, if you Destiny Bomb them, you actually faint first, so you still lose the game. So it's early. You have to use it at the start of the game if you're going to use it, or like the mid game. You can't close with Destiny Bomb. But yeah, I think Gambit's going to be really good. I would definitely put Gambit up in... I'm going to put Gambit in the S tier. I think these are like the two best Mons in the format. They just have better base stats than everything. I think that Gambit's definitely like an S tier Mon. And it's going to be the whole meta is kind of built around the 50-50 game between what are these Terras, what are their items, what are their sets. I think that people are going to be committing a lot of Terras to overly KO King Gambit. So like a good lefties Citrus King Gambit, lefties or Citrus King Gambit can actually have a lot of value and trade basically at a 1-for-1 or 1-for-1.5 every single game. And in a matchup where they only have 3 Mons, that's really, really good. Klefki. I think Klefki's good too. I think people are sleeping on screens in this format. This is one of the only screens users. So you can go like Light Screen, you can go Reflect, and then you can even go with like a, what is that stupid move? It's a Steel move. Steel Beam. So like you can go like this and soak some damage, and then basically just go for like a light. You basically go Screen 1, Screen 2, KO myself into like, this is where you would go into like a bulk up ape. Right? This is where you would go into that like fat King Gambit, and you would start setting up and getting a complete reverse sweep with just that Mon. Does it get Stealth Rock as well? I'm just curious. I think it gets Spikes to break Sash. Yeah, something like that. Or even Thunder Wave or something. I think that could be very, very good. It also gets Trick Room if you want to be a Trick Room setter. Very, very usable Mon. The best screen user in the format. I'm going to put Klefki in the B tier, because you will see Klefkis. Like, I would not be surprised out of like the top 50 to the end of the tournament if like 10 or 20 of them have Klefki. But the issue why it's only in the B tier is like it's a niche, like off meta pick that can, well, it's very strong because we don't have that many offensive options. It's very like high skill ceiling for the rest of the team, because if you get crit once on the other Mon that you go to, or you don't Terra correctly, you can just lose the game. So it's going to be hard to use Klefki. But for the people that really want to take a look, I think it might even be A tier level. But it's just so hard to like fodder him on for screens in a match where we already have to use Revavroom. If we didn't have to use Revavroom, Klefki would obviously be A tier, because you'd be putting screens up for 2 Mons. But you're really only putting screens up for 1, because this Revavroom like is not ever helpful. You're basically like finding a way in this meta to make a 2v2 situation, but in a singles game. It's kind of weird. Crocodile. So this is, I'm going to tell you guys the spice here. This is the Pokemon that I think is going to win me the most games in the tournament. I think Crocodile is amazing in this tournament. It has base 92 speed, so it outspeeds Ape, which is amazing. And it gets access to a lot of really, really cool moves. Remember how I said the best Pokemon in this format is going to be Choice Scarf, Final Gambit, Annihilate. So the first thing we want to do is just go with a Ghost Terra, so we don't have to get Final Gambited, right? The second thing we want to do is we want to intimidate this Annihilate, and we want to intimidate those King Gambits, and we want to give them those stats, and then mirror herb those stats into our Crocodile. And then from there, this checks Revavroom, which everyone has. If we go Ghost Terror with Shadow Claw, we start checking other things like the other Annihilapes. We have access to like dark moves. We can go for like a Lash Out, or I don't know what you want to, Crunch or something, Throat Chop. You know, you get all those options. And then the last move, we can even put like a Taunt or even like a Stealth Rocks there. And this Pokemon is going to be absolutely amazing because it outspeeds enough things out of the format. Mirror Runs Intimidate's a favorite of mine. It's good, you know, it just kind of works here. And I think Crocodile is going to be great. I think it's going to be really, really good. It's good against those, right? And it can deal with these, right? So I think I'm going to put Crocodile in the S tier with these guys. I think Crocodile is really, really good in this format. This is like one of the few times this Pokemon's going to be like really viable. And again, it's because the whole meta is set about enabling Annihilate and Gambit. You're going to make a team that looks weak to those. You're going to bring that Crocodile out in the lead. You're going to flip their lead. What are they going to bring in the Revavroom? You flip that too, and then they have one Mon to beat your Revavroom, your Croc, and one other completely other Mon that you have that probably checks the one thing that like lets Croc die. You know, it seems pretty nice on paper. Lucario is another Mon that I think is pretty good. Here we go. Lucario. Lucario is good Sashmon. You can go Inner Focus here. Inner Focus is good. I actually think that like Inner Focus might be viable on a few of the Mons instead of Defiant, because I think there's going to be a lot of Mirror Herb play, and I think like there are a lot of situations in which like Defiant might just be giving people Mental Herb procs or Mirror procs that you don't want to give them. So like Inner Focus is a really good ability. Justified's also good here too, because there are so many Dark Mons. You can build a team that's pretty weak to Dark stuff, pivot in on that, get the +1 here. But Lucario always has been built like Swords Dance. So you go like Swords Dance, Extreme Speed, Earthquake, and like Close Combat. Like this is gonna be a good Mon. This is like super de duper standard. You might want to pivot like the Close Combat for like a Meteor Mash here, just because it's like better into Annihilate, right? I think you should still have the Earthquake, because like look what it's good into, like here. Like I think Earthquake's still a really good one. It's really good in the Revavroom too. So I think Lucario is going to be very, very solid. There's a good chance I use Lucario as well. I don't want to put it like A tier. It also is a secondary Final Gambit user, so you can put, I guess I will put it A tier. It has a lot of the same tools as Annihilate does, but it's a lot more aggressive. And this will probably be like the de facto best Sash user in the format. So we're looking at Mabostiff. It's the last Intimidate user. Mabostiff, it gets Intimidate, Guard Dog, and Stakeout. These are both really good. So you can like basically use it as like a pseudo Defiant Mon too. They're solid in case you know that they're going to be leading with their Arcanine and stuff like that. It's 85 base heat, so it's not as fast, but it's a good Sash user, and he gets access to one of my favorite sets here, which is so like Trailblaze Destiny Bond. It's a little bit combo based, but it also gets things like Taunt. There are some good coverage moves that it gets. It gets access to like Play Rough, Psychic Fangs, Wild Charge, things like that. So I think it's going to be a usable Mon, right? But I don't think it's going to be like game-breaking meta. I think for like if we're looking like what Houndoom brings to the table, what Lucario brings to the table, it's roughly about the same but a little bit worse. The fact that it gets Intimidate or Guard Dog is a little 50-50 that you don't know where that's going to go. So like if I lead Mabostiff and you lead Annihilate trying to go for like a Defiant proc, and I'm able to, I don't know, I guess I could, if I was Sashed, I would be able to soak the Final Gambit and then next turn Destiny Bomb them on after. You know, that's probably the best that we'd be able to get out of that. So just throwing that out there as an option. Muck is going to be a weird choice, right? I think Muck's going to be a weird Mon. It gets some good items, or good abilities. Cinch is not great. Sticky Hold's not great. I'd say Poison Touch is probably the best one. It gets access to Haze, which is going to be almost viable in this format. Knockoff's good. That's basically it. I don't think it still gets minimized, right? Yeah, it still gets minimized. That's probably the best thing this guy can do, is like minimize strats with like Black Sludge or lefties. And, you know, that's probably going to be mostly what this guy brings to the table, and just like hope you miss that first one, and then if you miss the first one, you might miss some more. I think that's probably the best this guy's going to get. So I don't know where I'd put Muck, really. I'm going to put Muck in the C tier. I think it's way too combo based. I think the fact that like Revavroom exists as a Pokemon, you should just be able to check that Muck like every time. Revavroom's going to have high horsepower. Revavroom, it doesn't really have healing options. It doesn't get like Recover. You have to go for Rest, right? So I don't think Muck has like the defensive options. It gets Drain Punch, but that's not really a recovery option. So I don't really care for Muck all that much. We're going to take a look at Passimian. I just got done making a Passimian team recently. in VGC. And so its ability receiver is not going to work because there's no allies, right? But it does get Defiant, so it's another good Defiant mon. Issue is it's only 80 base speed, so it's going to be slower than Ape. It's going to be faster than Gambit, but you see what's like right in the middle? The value this guy has is that it still does have Drain Punch, and there are a lot of other really cool tech moves that it gets. You can go Sash Counter with this thing. You can go, I think it's Endeavor too, right? Doesn't get Endeavor. So you can go Sash Counter into like Quick Attack, weird stuff. It gets Taunt, U-Turn. There's not just that many things that it gets. You probably would go Faint over the Quick Attack just gets a higher priority. It's just not that great. I think it's usable, but at the end of the day, it's not really, you know, not really that good. So doesn't Muck get Acid Armor? Most of it is physical. Yeah, but like Muck has to ask for permission to use Acid Armor. So if Muck were to say, I'd like to click Acid Armor, and my opponent's like, okay, I'm going to hit you with a Kowtow Cleave, and you take like 45%, and then you Acid Armor, and then like I just do it again, and it does 31%, and you still didn't like do anything back, and then like I just hit you again for the extra 20%, and you're dead. So the fact, like the problem with Muck is that it doesn't have like a recover or like a slack off or something. But assuming that was going to go in the C tier, I don't think it's going to be that great. I don't see a reason to use it over something like an Annihilate or a King Gambit or a Lucario, and it just doesn't really get enough coverage. Pawniard, I was thinking about like if there was a way to make Pawniard work. So Pawniard doesn't get the same things as like King Gambit. I think King Gambit gets it gets Metal Burst, which could be viable. Like I was talking about the value of Inner Focus not giving people the Defiant procs to get the Mirror procs they need. So if you could learn Metal Burst, that'd be cool. It doesn't get like anything like that. It gets, I think the closest thing you get is like it doesn't even get Comeuppance. So this thing's bad. It just kind of has to be in there because they were used. Like I guess it's an Eviolite user if you wanted to use it, but who would be using this over like, who would use an Eviolite Pawniard over just a Gambit? And I guess you could say both, but then there's not really a reason to. So I would say this is the first not good mon. Probably not great. If we're taking a look at Pokemon that could be used that are Eviolite users, though, Primeape is actually a decent Eviolite user, and it gets some different options. Yes, you still have the Defiant if you want, but like Anger Point's viable, Battle Spirit's good. I think Defiant still might be the best one, but like Eviolite, Primeape is actually like, not a bad mon. If you were to compare their base stats, like the attack is roughly about the same. The base HP is the big difference there. But, you know, your defenses are roughly this, like just a little bit better than Annihilapes are. So it kind of evens out. 95 base speed makes it actually faster than most of the format. So, like, I wouldn't even be surprised if you saw teams that were like a Final Gambit or like a bulk up, like a standard Annihilape here with like a Scarf, one of these. So you can actually still be a bit of a bully. He's thinking Bright Powder, minimize Muck. I think that'd be too luck reliant. That's not a good way to look at it, in my opinion. But yeah, this guy definitely C tier. Like, definitely usable. But you're probably not going to see it that much. I think Scarf or Sash will probably be the best set for it. Skuntank. Skuntank gets a couple options. Skuntank's biggest problem is that like a lot of its moves are pretty walled by Revavroom, and it gets Sucker Punch, and it gets some cool stuff. It gets Aftermath, which is a pretty decent ability, but like the fact that this guy, it gets like Flamethrower on a really weak special attack stat. It has to be a physical attacker, and its physical coverage is just pretty lackluster. It gets Stab Crunch, it gets Stab like Gunk Shots knockoffs. It learns Foul Play, but it doesn't really get that much value, and it doesn't have any other really good tech options. I usually like to use this guy as like a Choice Band mon or like an Assault Vest mon, and I think those items are better off on other mons on your team. So I don't really know where I would put this guy. I think it's better than not good, so I would throw it in the C tier, but I don't really think it has like that much value. Torkoal can have value. I think Torkoal, you know, we were talking about setting up with like a screens team and just going like turn 1 Trick Room, turn 2 Misty Explosion, into like bringing out the Torkoal for 3 turns of Specs damage. You always can do that. But I think that like Torkoal with Drought being able to heavily mitigate the weakness to Azumarill for a team while also enabling things like your own Armor Rouge and your Houndoom can be very good. I think the common Torkoal set that you are going to see is like Eject Pack. So you can just lead Torkoal, get the sun up so you can go into whatever you want. Even if they lead Intimidate, like so, it doesn't matter. You'd have something like Stealth Rock. You'd have like Yawn. You'd have like an Overheat. So something like this might be a little bit better. You might even have, instead of the Overheat and like a Eject Pack set, you might see something like Leftovers with just like Protect, Yawn, and then Lava Plume. So the issue with this is like, you know, Lava Plume and Yawn can be anti-synergistic, but they do technically get you, like for things that you don't want to sleep, you can just burn them and vice versa. I think that Torkoal will see a lot of play. Stealth Rocks is going to be good on it. Yawn's good on it. You don't really need the Clear Smog. You can do that if you want, but I don't think it's required. You can just throw a Wisp on it. It's a good mon. I think it's definitely going to be usable. I would probably put Torkoal in the B tier. It's probably my favorite rocks setter in the format. But I just don't see that it like the meta actually like facilitating like high Torkoal play. Toxapex. This would have been a really, really cool format if Toxapex wasn't in it. Because Toxapex is a poison water that just walls the whole fucking format, right? It gets Baneful Bunker. Toxapex is like one of the best Pokemon, like in general in Battle Stadium singles. It gets Regenerator, which rewards you for pivoting. It can go lefties or Black Sludge. You want to still go lefties if you can, just because, you know, if you Black Sludge and you Terrasilize away, you start taking damage. So this is still really good. It gets Recover, it gets Toxic, it gets Infestation. This Pokemon is like really hard to beat. You need the Gambit to really beat this guy, and even if you do, it's just hard to beat this thing. It's really sticky. So you need like steel types to get it. Yeah, I think that it's not even the core of stall teams. I think every single team's going to have a Toxapex, and if you're not tall enough to ride, you can't. Because Toxapex can wall Ape, Toxapex can wall Revavroom, Toxapex can wall anything if it has to. It has to have like the right move somewhere. It has to have like some water attack or something. But it can get the job done. So I would put Toxapex in the A tier. It would be super S tier broken if this was like real games, but like the fact that like, and what is it? Armorage can give it problems. Crocodile gives it problems. Gambit gives it problems. While it's really good against things like Arcanine, Azumarill, and Ape, like there are checks to it. So I think it's going to be popular, and I plan on using it. We got two more mons. We have Toxicroak. Toxicroak's usable. You know, you don't use Fake Out in this format. I would still use Dry Skin, even though Torkoal's probably going to be the best Pokemon, just in case. You know, you never really know. Anticipation, though, is viable, and so you can scout for, like, what other weird moves people are using. So, for example, like, if an Armarouge has that Expanding Force, as opposed to, like, just a Psychic, you know, that's probably going to also have that Psy-Terrain, which means it's not a Choice Armarouge, because they have Expanding Force, and you can kind of use that to understand their set if you wanted to go Anticipation. But I like the Dry Skin. It's fine. There are enough water moves, I guess. Good stats. This is another good example of like a good Sashmon, I think. Just a good Sashmon. Gets access to like close combat, gets access to Drain Punch, get access to Gunk Shot. It's going to be cool. Issue with this guy is he gets kind of walled by Revavroom. You have Earthquake, which is good, but most Revavrooms in this format are also built Balloon. So it's going to be hard for Toxapex to actually find its niche here, but I think it's going to be good. You're starting to see a pattern where a lot of like the Poison Mons aren't that great because you already have to use a Poison Mon in your team, and since you always have to bring the Poison Mon, you don't want to just auto-lose to some guy using Earthquake. So Toxicroak's probably like a B-tier Mon. I think it's going to be good. I think the fact that like Ape gives it a really hard time, Crocodile can give it a really hard time, really hard. I think that's just enough of a reason to not use it. That's just my opinion. And last but not least, Wigglytuff. We don't have that many special attackers in the format, and Wigglytuff is a special attacker that gets competitive, which means we're even better if they intimidate us, which is one of the best abilities in this format. Huge base HP, decent special attack, and we have like some of the best coverage in the game. We have access to like Dazzling Gleam, Hyper Voice, Stab, Flamethrower, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, everything. Anything you could ask for. I think Wigglytuff definitely gets, and I actually think Wigglytuff can get fast enough to where like a Choice Scarf Wigglytuff can actually be really, really anti-meta. I'm probably going to test with this a little bit. I think Choice Scarf Wigglytuff could be very good in this format if given the right teammates. You can definitely flip a game with Choice Scarf Wigglytuff and just pin the rest of their bonds. Issue with Wigglytuff is it is weak to Revavroom. Very weak to Revavroom, so you can't really use it because it gives them a free pivot in the Revavroom, and then if you want to pivot out, it's going to allow their Revavroom to go for like a shift gear on that pivot, and you will get swept by the Revavroom. So that's gonna be rough. You hope I do well in this tournament. We'll see. I think that the first step is making content for it to show you guys how the teams work, and then from there, we'll see how we do. I would put Wigglytuff. I'm going to put it in the B tier because I also think the fact that it's the only Pokemon in the format that can actually pivot in and soak a Final Gambit Annihilate is really good. So if I pivot in a Choice Scarf Wigglytuff that has enough HP, like Wigglytuff EV spread 217, we got to get to 218, which is like 20. And then we would be like a full like Wigglytuff that's built like this. So, like 4, 228. So Wigglytuff that's built like that. I don't know like what we need to outspeed. I'd have to do more calcs. You might not even need that much speed. But basically, you pivot in here, you soak the Final Gambit. Wigglytuff's still alive at 1 HP, And then from there, they have to bring out something. If they bring out the Revavroom, you just flamethrower it or whatever. But then the Revavroom's taking a big chunk. They KO'd you. They potentially walked into something else. You still have your Revavroom and a whole other Mon and Terra and everything else. So I think that like being able to just flip a Final Gambit single-handedly as like a direct counter to one of the best mons in the format, while also still getting the competitive boost against 90% of the other good Intimidate users, makes this guy good. I think it's good in the B tier. So that's the tier list that I would go for here. I think you're going to see a lot of these three, which maybe one or two of these, and then maybe one of these things. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's how I'd be picking my team. Hopefully this enlightened you guys. Hopefully it did. You know, I think making content for this game is really good. If you're curious about how you're going to understand more about these games, you can go to Showdown. You can just watch some people play. So this is just a game on Showdown. Random people. Hey, look. It's exactly like what I said. You know, 1, 2, 3, and then an A tier Mon and a couple B tier Mons. And this guy's that Trick Room thing. We were talking about that. So seeing the weird Trick Room thing over there, I wonder what this guy's going to do to stop Trick Room. I wonder what they're going to do to stop Trick Room. Because it's probably going to be like Hat, Torkoal, Revavroom, right? So it's probably going to be like a slow spin out Revavroom. This is probably banded. How would I stop this? If I would lead Klefki, I think. Revavroom. Revavroom's also a really, really good check to Hat, because you just make them blow their load on your Revavroom. They went for the Earth Power turn 1. Mistakes were made. Crocodile comes in here. And it's White Smoke Torkoal. Huh. No drought. There's the balloon right there. We talked about that being like the most common, one of the more common items for Revavroom. Now let's see. Let's see what this guy's doing. We don't know if the Crocodile pivots out here, that means it's choiced. Otherwise, I think you should just attack the Revavroom, pop the balloon. High horsepower is totally okay. It looks like it's not that bad. It's that scale shot. Very, very cool. So it's not choiced on the Crook. You pop the balloon here, you get the +1, and then you can like outspeed and pin with Earthquake. That's so good. Isn't Flying Terra very strong in this format? It's a bit of a waste of a resource, but it's okay. Fighting Terra double dip. EQ doesn't get the KO. High horsepower does here. Okay, that's weird. So we know that this guy has his own Revavroom somewhere. Klefki, there's the Klefki. Dazzle? Klefki's not that slow. Probably not fast enough. He's going Iron Defense. Oh, he gaming. Oh, he big gaming. Iron Defense here, huh? I don't know about that one. He just probably didn't have the right mons. There's no good electrical rocks. Yeah, but the thing is, it's like flying's a pretty neutral Terra into things. I think water's also a good neutral Terra into things. Another Iron Defense on the water Terra. Oh man, he's going gaming out here. All these Iron Defenses. Does Klefki get body press? That's gonna cook. It doesn't get Baton Pass, does it? I'm excited to see how this one ends. What do you guys think? Pivot out to the Torkoal. Calm Mind. Oh, he is going to freaking town over here. Water Terra Klefki. Max defense. Big Spadef. Stored power. Popping it off. And then the Yawn cycle. We talked about that being a good way to use Torkoal. We'll have to use Torkoal with Yawn. Yep, he's going to protect the Torkoal here. Just put up in. If you're not pivoting, you just go for another Calm Mind. Good play. He should have protected if he had it. But hey, it is what it is. It's actually fine that he didn't break the Torkoal, because you don't have to break Torkoal. Going for the Common was right there. Yeah, Mud could work. Yeah, that's a scoop, though. This guy takes the W. Should we build a team for this format? Should we build a team? Right now. Right the heck now? You guys want to see a team for this format? I'm going to go Crook. I'm going to go Annihilate. I'm going to go, like I said, I'm going to build a team based off exactly what I said. King Gambit. And then I'm looking at like Armarouge. And I think I want Houndoom, but I might also just want like a Torkoal. I don't dislike Houndoom here. I'm just thinking of like what I need Houndoom for. I'm not going to go Sash here. I could go Wigglytuff. Let's just leave it these guys right now. We go through Mirror Herb set. We know we're going to go Mirror Herb. I don't know if I want to Choice Scarf this guy. That's the thing I'm thinking about. I kind of want Scarf, but I don't think I need it. I'll Scarf it. We'll be bad. Hell, I'm okay being bad for the start of this. Gambit, I'm going to make into like a Citrus set, I think. Armor is a little bit weird. I had a couple good idea for Armarouge. Let me see if I can do this. Yeah, I think I'm going to play Armarouge like that Psy-Terrain, that manual Psy-Terrain set with Expanding Force. And then I think I'm going to go Wigglytuff. Actually, I got an idea. Wigglytuff gets Expanding Force. Bruh! Whoo! Oh my gosh, dude, I'm about to be cooking out here, which means we gotta change our ape set to like lefties and just play value. These guys could both be built with lefties. I'm gonna go ape. Oh, that's sick. All right, here we go. So Revavroom. How do I want to build this guy? I guess I could sash it with shift gear, and we have like high horsepower, iron head, and gunk shot. I'm okay with that. And our ability would be filtered just in case. Mirror Herb, we were already talking about that set. We're going to go Earthquake. I like the Ghost Terra here with Shadow Claw. And I'm curious if I even want a Dark move. Like, what are we hitting in this format with Dark that we couldn't hit with Shadow Claw or Earthquake? I don't think I need a Dark move. I think I could Taunt, if anything. It's like Taunt or... fast you get 80, 90. All right, so I need to be full speed. I'm thinking, I actually really like close combat in some situations. I like taunt. What are you guys thinking here? Knockoff's viable as a dark move. Knockoff's pretty nice. It'd be cool to have a way to break Hat to like stop TR with this guy, but I don't think we can. I'm thinking. Like, does it go like circle throw? No, that would have been a cool way to do it. Ghost Curse? Oh, dude, that would almost cook. Rock Slide's viable. I think I'm gonna knock off. Just go with that for now. And then I think I had Taunt here. I'm just gonna put that there. I don't think I need Protect, but if I do, I do. We'll see what happens when we get to it. And then Ape. So we're going to go Bulk Up. We're going to go Drain Punch. We're going to go Rage Fist. And I'm looking. I don't dislike Encore. I don't dislike just like Shadow Claw either. Like turn 1, like fat damage. I'm just going to go Taunt. Yeah, that's fine. So this guy's going to have Swords Dance. This will have Swords Dance, Sucker, Kowtow. And I'm going to go Low Kick, I think. I don't want to lose the mirror. I'll mess with my Terra when I get to it. I don't think I need Iron Head. I'm looking at the meta, like I think I can Kowtow most things. I can't hit Wigglytuff very well, and I think that's fine. Armarouge. I'm going to go with... I'm going to White Herb my Armarouge and go Weak Armor. Expanding Force. Let's see. We got Expanding Force, Armor Cannon. Love that Armor Cannon White Herb, by the way. And then Aura Sphere. And then Wigglytuff, we already know that set. So it was Expanding Force. I don't think I need Hyper Voice per se, but it's not bad. I think looking at like Dazzling Gleam is pretty good. Do we get like Aura Sphere? No, we don't. I think Flamethrower is a good one. And you one more move for a Choice Scarf set. What's a good move? What's sort of my special? What would you guys put for the last move here? We have Psychic for there. Fairy for there. Fire for there. Does it get like Earth Power? No. Oh, Alluring Voice is better than Dazzling Gleam. Hyper Voice is a secondary stab. Does it do we get like Trick? No. What do you guys think in this last spot? Sing? Sing's not bad. Thunderbolt, maybe? I don't want to go like Ground Terra, Terra Blast. Shadow Ball? Like, I think I can Expanding Force, because like Shadow Ball's not stabbed. So, Shadow Ball's like okay. I'm just gonna put Hyper Voice for now because it's our first test game. Actually, I'm gonna Hyper Beam. That's probably fair. And let's start doing these EVs like I said. So the fastest Mons in the format are going to be 95, 91, 95. So as long as I'm outspeeding Arcanine, I am like the fastest thing in the format. Cool. So that's going to go over here. So an Arcanine at level 50, it's built like this. Let me just check. Jolly. 161. So you got to get to 162 with the Wigglytuff. We're already faster. That was not level 50 though. There we go. So we still need to go Timid, which is on 159. So we actually can't catch those Mons. We can't catch base 95s with the Wigglytuff. I thought that we could, but we can't. That's fine. I still think I want to try it. That means that the next tier we have to outspeed our 92. So that's Krook-a-Dial. And we can outspeed Krook. So 158, 159. Cool. I'm down with that. Being able to outspeed Krook is awesome for me. Just Oko back with a Whirring Voice. So 252 Timid. 244, 4. It's not even 244. It's like a 228. Awesome. Yeah, Team Star Challenge. It's a tournament. Making some stuff for it. What Terra is best? It's really hard to say. I'm going to go Psychic because I think that I might lock in like big expanding force value. This guy's Terra is up for debate as well. I think I'm going to go Ghost so I don't just get bopped by Ape. I don't want to get traded into. I'd rather just set my thing and just have value. Gambit, we're going to go with Water Terra for my test. This guy, we're going to go... Actually, let's go Water Terra here. And let's go Flying Terra here. This guy is Ghost. And then Revavroom, I'm going to go Flying as well. Just because like, I want to be able to check other Revavrooms. Do these EVs real quick. I'm going to make everything very fast. Like, no, not that. I think this is one of those, like, if you're not first, you're last formats, you know? I don't need full speed on my Gambit. What is Gambit outspeeding in this format anyways? Like, Armarouge gets to 95. 127. Gambit can't get that, but Gambit can be faster than 95 if I want to go up here. You know what I mean? Like, I could do that. No one's saying I can't do that. That's fine. I'm just going to go 44. Leave this on an even number so I can citrus correctly. All right. Thinking I can go Modest there. All right. Let's see if we can win some games in this format. We're going to see what it looks like. It could be good. So look at that guy. That guy has like exactly like what I said. They have the 3 S-tier Mons, 2 A-tier Mons, a B-tier Mon, and a Revavroom. So let's think. I want to be conditioning your Ape and your... The fact that I have this Krook up here means you're most likely going to be leading your Ape or your Gambit. So I'm leading off with the Krook. Right? We have to bring the Revavroom, and then we need to think, what is the Mon that we need in the back to win the game? Armarouge is not that hot. I think if I'm not using Armarouge as a lead, I'm not going to be bringing it. Gambit's not that hot into Krook. And Ape is good into Krook, and it's good into the rest of those Mons. I think I'm going to try and flip them with the Ape here. But let's just see. Mid-game Ape. Armarouge on the rip. I mean, that's fine. What are you doing here, buddy? Aura Sphere? Trick Room? Terra? Okay. Weak armor? Cool. Works for me. I take some of those too, you know. TY. Light Clay, Reflect. Dude, I take those though. Look at me, I'm Speedy Gonzalez out here. Holy shit, I'm gaming. Mirror or busted. Set up against me, see what happens, bro. Reflex good though. Reflex screens, I did not think about armors as like a screen setter in this format. You could pivot. This guy's ranked 1200 too, so like there's not that many people that are in this ladder. Actually, I want to see what the ladder looks like. Ladder, Team Star Challenge. This guy's like, what's his name? Something. Right here. He's ranked 23 on the whole ladder. There's a lot of people playing the ladder. So it's our first game, and we're doing okay. Here's their ape, and they have a screen up. I'm going to taunt it. I think they're going to bulk up. And then I'm going to knock off him, and we're going to be giving him all his stats here. Right? Or do we just start gaming? I'm gaming, chat. Gaming, boys. Let's go. That's damage. That do be... Oh, he Rage Fist. And then he crit us. Wait. So, you crit me with your Rage Fist, but I can't crit my, like, high crit move? I'm so sad. I cry every time. I cry every single time I've ever had to cry. Ow. Ow, 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 ow. That really hurts. Shift gear. Yeah, I have to do it. So, Reflex gone. Lynchtown. I can't believe I just got crit by a Rage Fist, dude. I'm so sad. When I went for a Shadow Claw, I tried to flex, bro. Didn't even let me. And we know that they still have their Revavroom left. Right? So there's a Water Terra. Great Terra from this guy. So he has all the right tech, bro. All the right tech in all the right places. Oh, yeah. I'm getting fucked. Oh, we take it, though. Show me that Revavroom. Show me it. Show me the Revavroom. He has the balloon. That's the right tech. Ironhead pops balloon. What are you going to do to me, though? Shift gear? High horsepower? Shift gear. Okay, it's going to come down to a shift gear speed tie. We are jolly for this reason. Shift gear speed tie. Survey says... I just beat the top 20 person on the ladder. First game. Literally first game. Oh! And we got unlucky. It just goes to show the value of creating a good tier list. Should we make more content on this? I'm thinking making like one team a day. Maybe making some like going over some usage stats. You know, breaking down, I can make a video breaking down like the top 4 or 5 different teams that I think we're going to see. And remember, you have to sign up for this tournament. You only have a few days to do it. It's happening like next weekend. But I think I can get out enough content to where if you guys wanted to play in this tournament, you could be pretty freaking prepared for it. To where you're not going to get like cheese and not have a good time. I think you could probably go like 10 to 12 out of your 15 wins every day. Probably end with like a 38, 39, and 6 record. That's probably what I would think if you know what you're doing. So, I mean, let me know if you want to see content like that. And I think I'm out of here.